So when was the last time that you imagined yourself stepping inside a painting? Maybe when you were 5? Mr. Gartell, of course, has been stepping inside paintings every day of his life, but that's also true of Tibetan Buddhists, particularly Tantric Buddhists. They step inside paintings every day. It's de rigueur, because there's a practice called the Mandala practice, and this is what we see on the screen in front of us. And, mandalas are an invitation to step inside, sure, if you're ready, and not all of us are. So let's prepare you a little bit for what this might actually be like. So the mandalas you might have seen come in the form of sand paintings, but they're also three-dimensional in the form of palaces, but they also come as four-dimensional representations of space and time. Or more accurately, representations of the microcosm of the universe that is your mind. And the thing is, when you work for a museum of Himalayan art, and I'm from the Rubin Museum, when you put an 8-year-old in front of a mandala, what does she see? She might see some sacred geometry, but does she know the meaning of it? And our role as a museum, of course, is to present art, but also help interpret it so that people can actually get inside. And to do that, we need a little creativity and a little help from, well, the teachings themselves. And what are those teachings? Well, Alan Watts put it very beautifully. He said, Buddhism isn't actually a teaching. Its essence, it consists in a certain kind of experience, or as Maxim would say, knowing. That's kind of what we decided to do, create experiences for people. And this is well within the tradition. The Tibetan word is nontri, and tantric masters in both the Indian and Tibetan traditions have long practice. A bodily, embodied experience is a way of understanding. It's not about knowledge, it's inherently getting it. So when we embarked on this exercise of trying to create an installation, allowing people to step inside the mandala of the Vairocana mandala, we drew upon artists as catalysts for the experiences, but we also went to neuroscientists and psychologists and said, okay, how is this going to land? And Leila Debachi, who heads the Memory Lab at Columbia University, was one of our advisors. And we were gestating this during COVID, and so she ran a study with her students, who were all, of course, all learning from screens at that point. And the one set of students had to just read what was on the screen, and the other set of students had to press the screen in order to activate the information. Guess which group of students were able to retain the knowledge that was imparted by more than 15%. Okay, great. Come to the front. No, that's it. So even that light touch embodiment was enough to engage more potently. Now, what if we made that touch a little riskier, a little more embodied, maybe even a little more playful? Thank you, Naomi. So maybe that 8-year-old will feel more inclined not to lean in, but actually empowered to step in and be the agent of her own destiny within this mandala. The Vairocana mandala, which is the example we chose to create an installation out of, think of it like the architecture of your mind. And, contemporary psychologists often refer to our mind as a house with various compartmentalized rooms that exhibit certain behaviors. And this is not dissimilar. But the tantric invitation is to say, hey, you don't have to accept this Airbnb as it is. You can actually move the bed from that dank little corner and put it by the window if you choose. And if you're a tantric practitioner, how about taking down that load-bearing beam and move it somewhere else? In other words, if you can't technically change your physical environment or your environment of circumstances, what you can do is change the way you perceive it. And that is called empowerment. So in this particular mandala, at the center, there are 4 chambers in the outer section, which are all colored. And they represent states of mind that get in the way of us understanding the big picture. They are anger, they are pride, envy, desire. And they cause or cloud our understanding of who we are, why we are, and who we could actually be in relation to everything else. And so we're going to go on a little journey today, because that journey is going to address what humanity needs at this very pivotal point in time. So we created this installation, which was both here in New York, but also traveled around Europe. And it was called the Mandala Lab, where emotions can turn to wisdom. And so we sent people on this journey. Now we made sure that, or we invited rather, people not to pack too much on this journey, particularly not your ego, because that's sure to get in the way. And we invited people to roam around this experience. And the first experience that they had to encounter was a mirror. And you look in the mirror and you ask yourself honestly, and this is so analog, people, I'm sorry, AI folks and digital advocates, this is so analog. You look yourself in a funhouse mirror and you have to make a choice of which of these particular receptacles to put your coin in. And the receptacles were states of mind drawn from the teachings, not invented by us, of do you feel better than other people? In other words, arrogant. Do you take credit for other people's work sometimes? In other words, entitlement. Do you never feel you're going to make it, aka inferiority? Or do you sometimes take pleasure in other people's pain? So the visitor has to acknowledge something if they recognize it in themselves, and the coin drops. But the coin makes a sound as it drops. And guess what that sound is? It's a sound of someone's token hitting everybody else's token. In other words, hey kiddo, we're all the same. It's the wisdom of equality. The next section up was attachment. And attachment comes in various forms. It's desire, sure, it's longing, it's also repulsion, and it's mollycoddling, and you know, who doesn't have an attachment to their pets, right? But here, we invited, in this case, 6 different artists from around the world to share a smell that triggers a very strong memory for them. So the visitor, again, did something that perhaps isn't possible in the digital world yet. They actually got to smell something. And it was, say, Laurie Anderson's trigger of cigarette smoke, for example, or Apichapong, where receptacles trigger of a Thai waterfall. So visitors got to experience it and compare their emotional reactions to that of the artist. But what I really liked about this particular experiment was, yeah, the artists were great, very accomplished, beautiful, exquisite, painful, touching. Yet the visitors were invited to share their scent memories, and we got thousands of them. Can anybody, if you smelled Chanel No. 5 in the room right now, would you recognize it? Hands up, just as a selection. Oh, fair number, okay. So I just picked 3 stories by visitors about the smell of Chanel No. 5. When I smell Chanel No. 5, I remember her. I miss you. When I smelled a Chanel No. 5, I remember smoking cigarettes in the boys' bathroom at summer camp. We would all gather there and smoke, and I would spray the perfume to cover up the smell, not realizing it totally didn't. The perfume was much too old lady for me, but it was gifted to me from an aunt who worked for Estee Lauder. It was a huge bottle, way too much for a lifetime, but to this day, I think it was the best use of that perfume. And to this day, when I smell Chanel No. 5, I think of that memory. When I smell Chanel number 5, I remember my mom getting ready to go out with my dad. This didn't happen often. My parents were unhappy, and my mother was an abusive alcoholic. I have mixed feelings about this smell. Right? 3 radically different emotional responses to the same molecular stimulus. What's that about? Well, it points to the fact that we humans perceive the world totally differently, or differently enough, based on our conditioning, our DNA, our upbringing, our environment, our cultural facets, and this is the wisdom and discernment of this section. Yes, sure, we're all the same. We learned that in the first section. In this quadrant, we learn that we're all different. Now what gives? Well, both give. And the challenge is that we have to learn to hold those 2 qualities, understandings, relationships in balance as we navigate society. The North, it's green. It's about envy, that sharp-elbowed competitive thing that gets in the way of collaboration sometimes. And here, I invited a Tibetan-American sculptor called Paulton Weinreb to create a luminous orb that emits a light pulse every 5.5 seconds. And the invitation to the visitor was to match your breathing to the light. But of course, what's actually happening when you're in this room, in this green chamber with strangers, is that your breathing is actually synchronizing with everybody else in the room. And if there are scientists among you, you will know what happens when we humans get into the same space and do something at the same pace. It's called entrainment. Our heart rhythms align, whether we're aware of it or not. Musicians, you get this all the time, right? And what happens, and the studies are fascinating, what happens when entrainment takes place is that members of that particular group start exhibiting pro-social behavior towards other members of that group. It's tribal, people. It's all been about our survival. This is how we became societal. And so you might have noticed that we have started to move from this egocentric me to this more, dare I say, holistic we. This migration from self to selflessness. But people, we're dealing with humans. And this is called a lab. So we couldn't get away with that. We'd have to admit the 4th section, the blue section, and test this assumption. The blue section is about anger. What happens when we're angry? We say something we usually regret 2 seconds later, or we hurt our knuckles, right? And so it was immensely fun to think about an installation which would allow visitors to actually hurt their knuckles. In other words, hit something in a museum. What fun. So I got 8 musicians, 8 percussionists, so we've had a few percussionists here in the room today, to select a disc, a tam-tam, a gong, that visitors get to hear. But what they did with it was unparalleled. They had to think about something that got their goat, that made them really angry, and then strike the gong, and then dip that gong into the water as it was resonating. And what happens, the physics of what happens when you transform vibration and sound in a different medium, it's funky, people. It makes such protestations, fizzing in the water, changing and warping the pitch. It may make you giggle because it's weird, which is a great antidote to anger, by the way. You should try it. But the point of the exercise was this. Your job was to leave that gong in the water until all the resonance had faded from your hearing. And the water was still again. And the teaching, the actual teaching says, transform your energy of anger into mirror-like wisdom. And what do you have in front of you? You have the world's first mirror, a surface of water. And when you could see your reflection clearly in that again, well, a little bit of time might have passed between your first feelings of anger and your next action, which creates a little bit of space. And in that little bit of space, there's just a chance, small but possible, a chance that patience might have a chance to grow. And that allows you the clarity to navigate the path ahead. And so we circle around the mandala time and time again, accumulating the teachings. And it'll be a time, perhaps, before we ever manage to get to the center, which is the harbor of ignorance, the very thing that informs all these other kleshas, these afflictions. I leave you with this quote from one of the guiding teachers from this tradition, Mingyur Rinpoche, who was also the advisor on this installation. And just to help us all realize, and this is particularly profoundly useful because I take this experience around to university campuses, particularly the week before finals. That's my favorite time. And students come and take part in it. And what they get to realize is that they don't need to be defined by their emotions. You can feel sad. You don't need to be sad. Thank you.